Okay, so let's look a little deeper into this abdominal cavity at some of these muscles here. And particularly what we want to look at here is the psoas muscle, okay, which runs in this deep abdominal cavity. The psoas is really important because, once again, we got all these nerves that come through it that are important for our sexual functioning, as well as all these blood vessels. Here's the psoas right here that run all through around the psoas, and all of this fascia that's on top of the psoas that can get restricted. But also, if you look here, the psoas runs opposite of the gluteus maximus, which is our main butt muscle. These do opposite functions, and they attach to the pelvis. So if one is tight, it's going to rotate the pelvis in one direction, right? Versus the other being tight, it's going to rotate in the other direction, either an anterior, posterior tilt, which can affect blood flow as well as back pain. But also, they are what's called agonist antagonist muscles. So they do opposite functions. And the interesting thing about agonist antagonist, we can see them both here. Here's the psoas, here's the gluteus maximus, is it can create something called reciprocal inhibition. So for instance, let's say our psoas major is tight. Say it's really tight. Well, that is sending a signal, because when something is tight, it's contracted, right? That sends a signal to the antagonist to relax so it can stretch out. We can see this just to, so you can visualize it a little bit better. We can think of this in terms of bicep, tricep. I'll just show you here real quick. So bicep, tricep do opposite functions, right? So when I contract my bicep, it's automatically sending a signal to my tricep to relax so that it can stretch out as I'm flexing this muscle. Right? Same thing happens in this direction. When I contract my tricep, it's sending a signal to my bicep to relax. Okay, that's called reciprocal inhibition. Agonist, antagonist. When one contracts, it sends a signal to the other to relax. That's reciprocal inhibition. And that's what's happening with these two muscles. So especially when you're doing a lot of prolonged sitting, so you're an IT professional and you sit a lot during the day, or truck drivers. We see this a lot with truck drivers where they have to sit for a long period. They can't stand up. This psoas muscle gets really tight and it makes their gluteus maximus really weak. So you've got the worst of both worlds, because when this muscle is tight, once again, you have, when that psoas major is really tight, it is constricting on those blood vessels that are inside of the abdomen, right? But also, it's also causing the gluteus maximus to get weak. And the gluteus maximus is your primary sexual power muscle. This is where your sexual thrusting happens. So over here, you're going to see neuromuscular attached to sexual power. A lot of that has to do with the pelvic floor we were just talking about, as well as the gluteus maximus, right? Or the glutes in general, which are your main sexual power muscles. And in addition to that, those fascial restrictions, when you get restrictions in here in any of these areas, it can greatly affect the penile nerves, right? The nerves that are actually going into the penis itself. These can get restricted inside of that fascia, both at the spinal nerve level or even at this level, because there's fascia that covers everything. So any of those restrictions in any of these areas, right, can affect the flow, that's the nerve flow that's going into the penis. And as you can see here, there's a lot of different neurological flow that's going to the penis from various areas, right? From the, saying before, the psychogenic area, the reflexogenic area, the vagus nerve that's coming down here, right? And then as it's coming out into the pelvic plexus, it can get restricted in any of these areas in terms of the fascia. Okay. And these nerve restrictions can not only just affect penile sensitivity, how much you're feeling in the penis, but nitric oxide production itself. Because as we talked about, that nitric oxide is produced in the endothelial cells, right? That's one of the places it's produced. It's actually produced in the cavernous nerve itself, right? So there's a couple of different ways it can do it. It can either release some acetylcholine, which goes in, and this is where the L-arginine comes out, and it creates nitric oxide that way. But you can also see that it also will release nitric oxide itself. The nerve itself, the cavernous nerve, can release nitric oxide into the smooth muscle without having to go through this L-arginine process. So if this nerve is compromised and constricted, once again, that's another way of decreasing nitric oxide levels.
If you would like help with your unique and personal situation from us, I put a link below that will explain all the different ways that we can help you get and maintain superior stage 4 rock solid hardness and lasting power both permanently and naturally at any age. Make sure you like and subscribe for more tips to attain elite level bedroom performance, and I will see you in the next one.